Coaching. What is it? Is it important? And should you hire a coach? What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Curtain with Scott and Pete. Scott, how we doing today, brother?
Doing pretty good, man. I think it's a gorgeous day out, and I'm excited to talk about coaching, growth mindset. It's funny. I think that's actually been one of our hashtags since day one of doing this, web series here, and we've never really talked all that much about growth. So that and coaching are two conversations that I think you and I dive into all the time. So what better way to go about it than bringing it to the people finally?
100%. And I'm excited to hear what you have to bring to the table with your experience as productivity coach with Keller Williams. So for just a little background, that's actually how Scott and I met. Scott and I were working together. He was the coach in our market center, and he was actually coaching me. Did that for a while, and then here we are now, both as solo agents and just having a lot of fun with it. So I'm going to kick it over to you. So talk a little bit about what is coaching to you? And let's just start there.
Yeah. So I think if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I'm not in real estate and I don't need a coach, I would challenge you to keep listening and expand your mindset on that a little bit. Because I think even I hear realtors say that, I'm a realtor, why do I need a coach? Because we've grown up though, thinking of coaches as the people that are in sports, right? But a coach to me is someone that works closely with you and is the third party kind of looking at what you're doing and able to coach you, pull better performance out of you, right? Help guide you towards performing at a higher level. So that does apply to sports. I think it also applies to any number of professional fields as well as even in your personal life, right? I know some people might be hearing life coach as a term right now and rolling their eyes, but I think, that's important to have in your life, is somebody who isn't just a friend or a family member, giving you advice, but it's somebody who is kind of impartial over here looking and saying, hey, here's what you're doing and here's how you could be doing it better. So that's a super broad definition of what a coach is. But I think no matter what field of work or no matter what area of life you're looking to improve, having that person in your life who can be the coach to help pull the best out of you is something I definitely have learned firsthand is invaluable. And I know we share that belief. So
Yeah, 100%. And, it's funny, as there's a million things now flowing through my head from what you just said. I mean, one thing, ironically enough, is I just, in my networking meeting this morning with Bshore, Dave actually played a video of Arnold Schwarzenegger talking about how the self-made man or woman is actually a myth, right? Because nobody truly succeeds alone. And that's the idea you're trying to get from a coach, right? And the other thing that kind of my mind goes to is, as you're talking about it, I have a lot of coaches, right, in my life. It's just we don't always put that title to who they are. And then the other thing that kind of just light bulb kind of went off a little bit here is, if you think about sports teams, right, a basketball player, baseball team, whatever it is, yeah, you could put that team out on the field and they would probably do a pretty good job. But if you have a coach there guiding them, seeing the things that they're not seeing on the field or on the court or on the pitch, I never really, it's so funny. We talk about coaching and just, sometimes you're so close to something, you don't think of it in that way. But it makes all the sense in the world. So I think that's yeah.
So it's funny your mention of the video that you watched with Arnold Schwarzenegger talking about the self-made man, right? And one that I've recently been thinking about, and what timely news with Tom Brady deciding to unretire, right? And so, for years, the conversation was always, well, are the Patriots good because Tom Brady is a phenomenal player or because Belichick is a phenomenal coach? And I think a lot of people initially, when Tom Brady went to the Bucs and, they won a Super Bowl, they're like, see, Tom Brady was the reason the Patriots were good. And yet you look at the fact that the Patriots have a system in place and Belichick has been able to basically, even though he doesn't have Brady anymore, I know firsthand as a Jets fan, the Patriots are still a freaking tough team to play. And that comes from great coaching. So I think that's really cool, that idea of like no self-made man or woman out there. It's, I think Belichick probably got the best out of Brady that he possibly could be as a player. And I think also, natural talent does shine through. But again, you need that coach who can tap in and really, multiply that talent, I think. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to I'm not going to take the bait of falling into the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick conversation because it's one I'm very passionate about, and I won't. That's not why we're here today. But your point is, it takes a great player, right? There's no dispute that Tom Brady is an excellent football player, and when you partner someone who's really good and has natural ability with someone who can get the most out of them, that's the idea behind a coach. And you also touched on something else with that, which I think is really important, which is being that independent third party, right? Having that person who is looking at things from the outside picture, because even like I just said with coaching sports teams, because I've been so close to business coaching, I didn't really think of it big picture. Um, just having somebody who's on the outside looking in and can kind of guide you through that, I think is huge. And now let's talk about a couple other coaches that we have, right? Because I think especially anybody who's listening in the real estate world, who practices real estate, is immediately thinking real estate coach. But what are some other things that like you can relate to? We talked about growth as well, and just having people around you. Like, what are some things that you can kind of relate to that's not like a formal a coach that you have?
well, so I think I want to rewind for a minute there to say that it's interesting because when I went from the coaching role into production, the first thing I did was I hired a coach. What I expected I was hiring was a real estate coach, right? That was my intention. I hired a person who is in with the real estate coaching community. Shout out to my coach Kyle. Yet what I really got out of that, and what I really think has been the huge, just forever grateful for him expanding my mindset around wealth creation and just always seeking out opportunity to build wealth through real estate. And it's just really changed my mindset. And what I think I'm relating that back to, I think the direction you were taking it was that, like, I don't think we would have the amazing book club that we have, or you've started like a investment group where we meet virtually, right? A lot of those things probably wouldn't have even have been top of mind, or they might have been created in a smaller fashion, right? And we wouldn't have thought of the potential of like, what does this look like if we open it up? What if we attracted even more talent into this, into our world, and just had higher level conversations? So I think, the alternative to like having a singular coach in your life is surrounding yourself, right? The old saying, you are a summation of the 5 people you surround yourself with most. So if you're surrounding yourself with bigger and higher level thinkers, you're naturally going to elevate to their level. So that's kind of what I would think of when I think of alternative coaching, or an alternate to coaching. So.
Yeah, no, and I think, like in that same realm, right? I think you and I having each other, right, to kind of we're we do a lot of stuff together, but we are running 2 very individual businesses, right? But like, there's been times where I still call you and I'm like, hey, like this is what's going on. Like, what do you think? What would you do in this situation? And vice versa, right? You've called me about things, and it's just like, what would you do in this situation? And that is so invaluable, because it either like validates what your thought process is, or there's an opportunity there for you to maybe change the way you're thinking about it.
Mhm.
And, I think that also, we're kind of touching on too, is like, you need to be coachable if you're going to have a coach or have those people around you. Like, it's tough sometimes, but dude, like brutally honest, for me, like that's how I take it. I know some people are everybody has different needs when it comes to coaching, but you need to surround yourself around the people who are going to be honest, but also not be hurtful.
Yeah. So what does that mean? And I feel like, as we're talking here, I'm also thinking of the conversation around coach versus mentor. So maybe we've uncanned like a multi-part multi-episode conversation here. But like, what do you mean to be coachable? Like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think so. For me, to be coachable means that you can take criticism and you can take feedback, that you understand that there are people who have done it before you, and kind of walking in their footsteps, standing on the backs of giants is my favorite expression. But I think it's, sometimes it's really hard to hear some criticism about yourself, because we all have perceptions of who we are, in our heads,
Yep.
but it's not always completely in line with the outside world. And that can be in a positive or a negative way, right? You could be really down on yourself and other people see you in a very positive light, or, vice versa. So I think just being able to be open to that conversation and that criticism, to me, that's being coachable. But then not only just being open to having the conversation, but then to go out and execute, because it doesn't matter if you know what you should be doing if you're not doing what you should be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where I always think of the, one of my favorite sayings, that don't mistake movement for achievement. You could sit in a classroom, you could talk to a coach all day, but if you don't take any of those lessons and go put them into action, then, maybe you'll be really smart at the end of the day. But I think, the applying the knowledge you're gaining is super important. So,
Yeah. And one other thing I wanted to kind of come up as we're coming up against the clock here is, not every coach is the right fit for everybody, right? So I just want to share, like, I recently, I've been in coaching now for a little over 6 months. And I gave it a fair shot with my official hired coach, my business real estate coach. And I reached a point where I realized that it just wasn't what I needed. At a certain point in time, I feel like this particular coach would be great for me and would be able to have great conversations. However, for where I am in my business and my life right now, I know that I need something else. So initially, I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to take a break from coaching. I guess because I was a little frustrated. And then I realized, you know what? No, it's not a matter of it, because I did get some really great stuff out of that coach and really opened my eyes to some things I wasn't seeing, but it's not exactly what I needed. So now we're in the process of hiring a new coach and going through a different, there's some self-reflection that has to come in there. What could I have done better? What could they have done better? And it just, having that experience helped me identify what I truly need, which I couldn't possibly have known before starting coaching. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think it also brings up one other good point that I want to make is that, right, like, no, again, equating it back to sports, right? Like, we'll talk about baseball this time, right? Like, if a player is going through a slump and we were to watch him play one game and he goes 0 for 3, right? He doesn't get a single hit. And then he goes back and talks to his coach and, works on a few things. But the next game he goes out and he goes 0 for 4, doesn't get a hit. It doesn't mean that the coaching is not working. It just, sometimes you've got to draw that out on a timeline. And I really thought that was cool that when you talked about your coach and like moving on to hire a different one, you said, like, this person might actually make sense for me at another point in time in my career here. It's just not the person I need right now. And so I think the two things there are that, it's like the seasons of life, but it's also the concept that, like, don't give up on something just because it doesn't work immediately. That, like, there's, stick with it, but also challenge, the person you're working with to make sure that they are the right person and that you are getting growth out of, your investment of time and potentially money in having a coach. So,
well, Scott, I got to say, I think that was a great way to end this episode. So if you're interested in learning more about our experiences with coaching, or you just want to, maybe you're in the real estate industry, you want to be, around other people who think like this, or in our roles, we coach our clients through the buying and selling process as well. So anything we can do for you, just let us know. Scott, you got any final thoughts?
That's it for this week.
All right, guys, be sure to drop a comment, like us, hit the like button, ask us any questions, anything we can do to help you. Have a great day.